Sarah and Tim.
Buenos dias. Me llamo Sarah, ella llamo Señor Thinh, and today we would like to share with you some interesting information that we've learned about Spain. But first, I'd like to give you my research citations so you may further your education about Spain if you so please. And they are Spain, the history of nations, Spain, the root and the flower. Also, I've found some very insightful and worthwhile documentaries as well as articles on discovery.com and www.nationalgeographic.com. My three main points that I'm going to make during this speech is I'm going to share with you some quick and interesting facts about Spain. My second main point, I'm going to talk about Franco. And my third point, I'm going to talk about public speaking in modern day Spain. Some quick and interesting facts about Spain. Did you know that prior to the multiple wars that Spain was involved in during the mid-1600s to the early 20th century, that Spain was actually the wealthiest country in the world? Spain's landmass is approximately 192,819 square miles. Spain's landmass size is about 3 times bigger than English, with 1/3 the population of England. They still conduct the barbaric and controversial sport of bullfighting. It's a part of their culture, but it's been really controversial. The capital city of Spain is Madrid. And on more of a devastating but factual note, Madrid was actually the first European city to be bombed in World War II by the Nazis. On my second topic of discussion, I wanted to tell you guys about Generalissimo Franco, who, like Mussolini and Hitler, was a dictator. Also, like Mussolini and Hitler, he had to be a powerful public speaker in order to motivate people to follow his political vision. A lot of political gestures in Spain were referred to as Francoisms. General Francisco Franco was born in 1892 and died in 1975. By 1936, Franco was appointed General of Nationalist Spain and head of Spain. He was also recognized by Germany and fascist Spain as the ruler of Spain. Part of his ruling, it was known that his rule was law. Whatever he said was law. You didn't go against his beliefs or political views, which led to not much freedom of speech or freedom of anything that was against what he wanted for his country. In 1947, students became wary of his restraints. Also, the churches became frustrated with the restraints of his political views and started revolting. Francisco Franco was a fan of other fascist countries and gave multiple speeches praising them. I have a quote with me of from one of the speeches that he gave appraising a fascist country, and it states, "Those are mistaken who dream of the establishment liberal system in Western Europe, bordering on Russian communism, those who speculate on liberal peace agreements or Bourdieu solution." If you're not familiar with what fascism is, it's a radical authoritarian political ideology, and Bourdieu is considered like a wealthy class of citizen. After Francisco Franco died, King Don Juan Carlos succeeded him and slowly and very carefully turned the political outlook of Spain into a democracy, which allowed more room for freedom of speech. How do you close out of it?
Try escape.
Okay. in allowing freedom of speech, Spain has matured much like our own country. So they're taught public speaking in their colleges. Fortunately, I even found a video clip of public speaking in Madrid, which is the capital. It's called Cherish Your Life, and it's by a Toastmaster student. So I'll show you just a clip of it so you guys can recognize the similarities and styles that they are taught to speak. They're very similar to our own. I'll show you about a minute of it.
Nova Communication, Toastmasters class.
Death. It shows us how fragile life can be. It teaches us that wealth is not eternal. It makes us wonder why we didn't spend more time with others. Even though death constantly takes away people's most valuable treasure, it seems to me that we have not yet learned the lesson, which is to cherish life. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmaster, I really think we have. Carolina was a beautiful child, blonde with dark colored eyes.
Notice how he addresses everybody and talks. He introduces his topic with like a powerful quotation, saying first death, so to grab everybody's attention. Eventually, like a couple seconds later, he'll state his 3 main points, and he does this as well. And I thought that was funny that we have so much in common. So I appreciated that. And now my partner Thin's going to give you his information that he learned about politics, culture, and education in Spain.
Thank you, Sarah. Sarah just talked to you about Francisco Franco, which was a really key name in Spanish history. He was a dictator, like she said, compared to Adolf Hitler. He actually worked alongside with Nazi Germany and Italy during that time frame. I'm going to tell you about education. I'm also going to tell you, I'm telling you about education, how it follows along with public speaking. I'm also going to tell you about politics as well as Spain culture with public speaking. In Modern Nations of the World by John Gabrowski, I learned that the main language in Spain, which many of us know, is Spanish. But what you might not know is there's a lot of dialects. The main dialect that's used is Castellano Spanish. The others include Galician, Euskera, as well as Catalan. 97% literacy rate will understand that Castellano Spanish. So the schools are separated by both primary schooling and secondary schooling. Primary schooling, it goes from age 6 to 12. Secondary schooling goes from ages 12 to 16. Primary schooling, the emphasis is not so much on public speaking. They're going to concentrate more on art, literature, and Spanish, and especially during the Franco times, politics. That was a major subject that they covered. Because like Sarah said, Francisco Franco, he ran the country with an iron fist. He was known actually in Spain as Caudillo de España, which means the leader appointed by God. So, I mean, by hearing that, you know how he felt about himself. In secondary school, from age 12 to 16, the emphasis changes. It actually goes from math is one of the main emphasis in schooling, art, literature, Spanish, but they go on to school for technical school or follow up in law, architecture, because one thing I did not mention in Spain, they are really artistic people. The hours of schooling, which is interesting compared to us, is they go to school from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. But after that, they go home for 3 hours, have meals with their family, and then they go back to school and end it to the late afternoons. I would love to go home for lunch and have, you know, meals with the family and stuff. So, how she talked about Francisco Franco. Up to 1975, education was really poor in Spain. It was actually it was the lowest in all of Western Europe. The classes were small. There was no room for many students. A lot of students weren't even allowed to go to school, just for the fact that only the upper class were allowed to go because the space was so limited. The lower social classes were not allowed to go. Another thing I did not mention is the fact that women and girls, they weren't in school. Just for the fact, I mean, there were some, but for the most part, the guys had first come, first served. They had to go. They had to be the ones that attended school, because women, like in the United States, or I'm sorry, in North America, women were always subordinate to men. After Franco, democracy was restored. Don Juan took over. Education improved. They learned that the children were their future, so they emphasized education and preschool in it, because that's where they learn the individuality, and they kind of learn, you know, and ease themselves into the educational system. And at that time, after Franco was no longer a dictator, all social classes were allowed to go to school. Women's rights were restored, so they were allowed to go attend schools as well, and they had pretty much the same rights as men. Not all the way, but it was a lot better. By 2002, the literacy rate was 97.8% as far as 15-year-old going to secondary school. I say that because when Francisco was in power, secondary school was not required. So many people didn't even go to secondary school. Okay, in one of our questions in our packet prior to doing the speech, there was a question that where can you go to gain skills and knowledge to improve your public speaking? Like Sarah said, there's Toastmasters, which was interesting because I had no idea until she told me that. I did my research, and it also said that to participate in political movements, I learned of a program called Dialogue that takes place in Barcelona, Spain. This is an annual event. It teaches you negotiating, which we never learned in this class. I thought that was pretty interesting that they added that as a form of public speaking. They like us with The Natural Speaker, you know, the book The Natural Speaker. Theirs is called The Natural Way of Dialogue. Okay, that's their form. They teach you correct posture, how to use your hand gestures, and use proper mannerisms when you're speaking. And I read in The Key School Capital by Antonia Verdi that there was another program called Immerse in Spanish. I wish we had a program like this. But unfortunately, English, we have one dialect, we all understand each other. There's no other English, unless you have a really strong accent or something, but it's still the same thing. Immerse in Spanish, what that is a whole bunch of high educated people, such as teachers, conductors, symphony orchestra, all the people from like high ranks. They come and speak and give you tips on how to speak properly. They give you the knowledge of different cultures. And the thing that I find really interesting about this, you can only speak Spanish, no other language during this time. It's an event where they share cultures and different foods. They talk about all the things that are going around, current events. But like I said, the key point is they only speak English, Spanish. They only speak Spanish during that time. Now I'm going to tell you about culture. Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to switch it up a bit. I think it would be a little more interesting. Instead of just talk about it, let me demonstrate it. May I have a volunteer up in the front, please?